I'd like to introduce you to today's presenter, Matt Donovan. As the Vice President of GP Strategies Learning Solutions Group, Matt has more than 25 years of experience crafting training and development solutions with a focus on performance-driven learning. He has an MS in Instructional Systems Technology from Indiana University. Matt has led the production of more than 300 custom online courses for Fortune 500 companies, many of which employ a scenario-based approach focusing on reinforcing authentic work practice. I can say I've worked with Matt for a number of years, and you are all in very, very good hands. So with that, Matt, I will go ahead and turn the presentation over to you.
Thanks, Kayla. Appreciate that, and actually excited to be with you guys here to kick off the new year with everybody, start 2018, as we really start to look into what are some of the innovation trends that we're going to be looking at as we go through the year in 2018. So I want to talk a little bit about where is the need or the emerging elements from innovation really coming from, because it's been a hot topic we've been talking about in 2017. Even as early as 2016, folks were all talking about innovation really started to be a hot point, not just for the folks in the training and development industry, but in the business industry as well. A lot of initiatives when it comes from the digital landscape, whether it's in the business sector, a lot of change and disruption has been coming through. So I wanted to just real quickly kind of talk, where is the demand for the innovation that we're seeing emerging from and seeing what's really populating with that. So what I'm sharing here is just a graphic from the fourth industrial revolution, and it's a concept that's really saying where is the driver for the disruptions, the need for innovation. Where is it really coming from? As we've gone through these different waves of what I would consider work and the way in which humans endeavor to complete tasks, work together, et cetera, as you go from the automation and computers and electronics, which started off in the 1969, which is the one we're coming out of, into the fourth industrial revolution, which is really around the cyber physical systems, the internet, and the networks and connected things. And what we're seeing is that rising out of that are three specific elements: the rise of the digital consumer, the digital enterprise, and digital operations. And what we're really talking about here from a broad standpoint is that the digital consumer is that instead of having multiple touch points where we are engaging customers and they're having to come into the space of the business to do their daily tasks or activities, we're now actually enveloping them and making it more immersive where they are and conducting business, allowing them to consume, interact, engage with businesses and others from where they're at their point of interaction. The digital enterprise is the environment that enables and supports that and wraps that consumer around that digital experience. And then the digital operations is really referring to the support elements, which would be like robotic process automation, machine learning, machine interventions, a lot of those things where we're actually creating, using AI as an engine to interact with humans to increase or, what I would say, enhance the overall experience. Take, for example, the financial services industry. When you think about the way banking was in the third industrial revolution, you'd be able to go out and, let's say, apply for a loan online, but you may have to go in and actually see a mortgage broker. If you needed to cash a check, you may have to go into the bank to do that. If you needed to withdraw cash, you'd have to go to the ATM to be able to transfer funds or gain cash to do something else. And what we're now seeing is, if you just think about that in the financial sector, what's happening now is you can do all of those things that I just mentioned from your device, from your phone or your tablets, where you're at your point. You can actually scan a check, deposit a check from your phone and have the funds transferred. You can actually apply for, and basically digitally sign an entire mortgage completely online. And at the same time, you're also getting alerts from your account updated that, you have an overdraft alert or a change in rate alert, or even more importantly, it's making some intelligent decisions about your funds based off what it knows about you or some preset expectations. And so what you're seeing is a shift from what I would call the org-centric view of the world to where we've made connections with performers and learners and consumers into the 4.0, which is really driving this digital landscape. And so when we're talking about the innovation that we're looking at, it's a lot more in that kind of framework, in that context. And with that, where it impacts really the, what I would call the L&D side of that, when we look at some key mind shifts that are stemming from that towards, as we go towards that digital experience, we're moving from an age of efficiency to an expectation around efficacy. And so if you look at the traditional, or the what I would say is the traditional L&D structure, or the organizational key points, and then you look at the digital or modern learning, I pulled together here like 7 or 8 key points that allows you to kind of look at a compare and contrast of the two. So for example, content and process. If you look at shifting over to learner experience and the focus on relevance, moving from a single moment of need to a range of moments of need in terms of measurement, going from aligned to training-centered metrics to being more aligned towards business-centered metrics. Your processes, the way in which you're engaging with your business partners or your learners, is moving at the speed of business, less at a single speed of process. Learner connectivity traditionally was more siloed or discrete. Now we're seeing continuous, networked, organic, and fluid. You're seeing the learner role is expanding or shifting from traditionally consuming content or information provided to the organization, and is really expanding the expectation of those roles to be really around consumer, contributor, collaborator, moderator. So you're really expanding the expectations and the roles of the learner/performers, and that's where a lot of the technology and methodology that we're seeing around the innovation space are coming to really enable that. Around a process foundation, we're expanding from a traditional waterfall or systematic, which ADDIE, I would say, would fall into that, which is a sound systematic process, but we're also seeing the inclusion or enhancement through agile or design-centric, which are more systemic in nature. So they do have a systematic element, the repeatable processes, but they are really focusing at starting at the point of the learner, starting at the performer or the learner, and it's really taking a look at it from a systemic view. And then the last one is the organization's relationship to learning. And learning is discrete transactional activities versus holistic and integrated systems that include learning. So around a lot of these transitions or transformations that we're seeing, it's really driving a lot of the innovation that we will be seeing in 2018. So one of the things in order to really think about this is, how will you really respond to that, to be in a place without actually, absorbing all the disruption of trying to find your way to make those transformations within that. And I think one of the things you're going to see is a lot more of an investment in what we call digital learning innovation centers. And what it is really is a physical or a virtual space where a learning organization can explore, innovate, and refine, with a key element of without disruption of critical day-to-day activities. This is a safe place to kind of try out the emerging methodologies, technologies, platforms, and approaches without really compromising the day-to-day activities that organizations need to have. You still got to support the learners and performers on a day-to-day space, but you also need to think about how you can safely bring new elements into the business. So the benefits of these innovation centers will really be around what we call a sustainable approach to innovation. And what we're talking about is not this whipsaw approach to trying the next shiny object. It's about being an effective response to disruptions and being able to use a process, a scientific method that allows you to move into evidence-based decision-making rather than focusing on opinions or perceptions or sales collateral or whatever. You want to be able to kind of come in and test it and collect data and refine your understanding of the value of the innovations, its applicability, and then hopefully move them from exploration to operationalization for the ones that are truly viable. So you're going to get the benefits of like shorter times between ideas and execution, and you're going to really cultivate innovative solutions that are truly going to move the organization forward without just chasing the next shiny object, increasing idea potential while simultaneously decreasing its risk. Through doing smaller test and learns or pilots, you're able to not only collect evidence that can help you make good decisions, but it's also reducing the risk of trying to just roll something out across the entire organization. And the last one is about productive, continuous innovation with fewer negative disruptions to the day-to-day activity. So I think one of the key things we're going to see is that you're going to see a rise of these innovation centers in the ways that organizations are looking to bring the many new platforms and technologies that are emerging. 5 key innovative behaviors that we're really going to see around that. We're looking at research-based and looking at roughly a 5-step innovation process, which really starts around observing, questioning, networking, experimenting, and associating. And this is all in the spirit of being able to bring the new, the near, and being able to make value out of it potentially towards applying to solve a real business challenge in the end. So these are all traditional techniques that many of us probably learned in late elementary school or middle school as we started to explore and practice with the scientific method as we would start to gather data. But getting back to those roots as you're starting to integrate and bring in new innovations will really be critical success factors for your organization. The innovation process is where you kind of move it, you think you want to come in and you want to discover. You want to discover new insights, new elements that are coming into the space, emerging practices, emerging platforms, new technologies. You'll go through, as you learn more about it, you'll refine your understanding, you'll experiment with it, reflect and share what you find. And this is really the most important, is that you've got to be able to collect the data and share it amongst others, and then ultimately integrate what you're finding back into the business, those viable solutions. So this really is a process that enables you to not only bring innovations in, collect the data that you need, and then be able to apply them and make the right decisions. Here's an example of some types of innovation. We've got demonstration, exploration, test and learn, and pilots. And these are all progressive investments in learning more about, a methodology, a technology, a platform, whatever's coming into the space that you're working on. So as you go from a demo, it's just starting to explore and learn about it, all the way to test and learn, which is a structured process where you've got a hypothesis of how you think something's going to work. This is with an authentic example, but it tends to be a little more low risk. A pilot, on the other hand, is a more higher commitment invested into a real authentic, but even maybe actually in the field test where you're gathering more data. So as you go from a test and learn, which is meant to be small and quick and prototypical in nature, pilots are a little more planned out and really drive towards gathering real data to look at mass integration or optimization. All right, here's just a quick example of one that was done around the concept of augmented reality. And this is, the idea here is that, pull together what you know. And so this is a poster that we have where we've created some information around augmented reality. What is it? What is its uses? So it's capturing some of the data that we were, summarizing from our exploration, some demos of some tools that we had, and then an example in the lower right-hand corner where we just very quickly pulled something together and tried it and applied it and got some feedback on its effectiveness. How did it work? And so this one was one pretty simply that was able to actually use related to information that was actually attached to a vehicle, and then using a phone, you'd be able to pull up a video at the point of interacting with the product and learn more about it, about demos and promos, really around the safety features included in the vehicle. So this is meant to just really reinforce that not every test and learn or pilot has to be this huge exercise. You want to have it structured and supported, and you really want to drive the gathering of data, but you also want to do it quick, get something out there, learn more about it as you do it. Because the thing I found with most of the emerging technologies is that it takes time to get involved and to really understand them. So it's not something that you're just going to intimately pick up right away from a quick demo, because a lot of these platforms evolve over time. A lot of the methodologies evolve over time, so you need to look at true interaction in the context of the tools. How to get started really here is just some 7 easy steps to do this. Starting off with, set aside a cross-functional team to start looking at the key business challenges, some of the key emerging innovations or elements that are coming out in the industry. Make sure that you've created space for the resources, make sure they're accountable for their success. You want to make sure that you're documenting your current activities. I guarantee throughout your organizations a lot is actually going on right now. People are exploring and implementing and testing things. Be sure to document and capture those and share those throughout the organization. Create a rolling learning innovation plan throughout the year. And implement a process for prioritizing the activities, conducting experiments, documenting results. And then the 6th one is really around publish and sharing. And I can't emphasize that this is probably one of the most important steps, is that as you've gone to the effort to collect data and information, you've got to share and disseminate it throughout. And then the last one is really drive basically integrated into the business. Sorry about that. But once you've seen a viable innovation, you want to make sure it translates into impact, get it into the business, start using it regularly, and then track over time its effectiveness. So I know we've been moving quickly through this. I actually did a 45-minute presentation that offered some depth later last year. But in closing, I just want to make sure that, we really need to continuously adapt in order to remain relevant. Innovation's a key part of that. We need to focus on the mindsets, both within themselves and their learners in the L&D organization. Develop the skills to identify trends and signals earlier, looking about things or how they're changing in the industry, starting to do that, identifying and tracking, and then be able to put in plans to shift where those trends are going, and essentially in the end get better at determining when to shift to the new trends. And I love this Deming quote here at the end. It's one of my favorites. It is not necessary to change. Survival is not mandatory. And I think when it anchors back to the concept of innovation and really around change, the key thing here is that we need to take on that mandate. So, Kayla, I know we're right here at the end. We're bringing it in with just about a minute or so. Were there any key questions that we could take real quick?
There were, and before we address those key questions and we have folks start dropping off, I do want to jump in quick and first of all say thank you, Matt, for a quick presentation. I know there's a lot of information to cover here, but I do want to remind everyone, if you have a question, please enter it in the Q&A module. I've seen several come in here in the last 5 minutes, but there's obviously still more information to discuss. But Matt, if you can go ahead and flip it to that last slide, I want to make sure everyone has access to your contact info to continue the conversation with you beyond today's session. Also, I'd like to remind everyone that the recording and slides from today will also be sent to the email address that you provided when you registered, so that will be coming to you. So without further ado, I will jump into these questions because they are coming in quickly. Let's see here. We'll just jump into the first one. How do you measure the success of an innovation program?
I think one of the key measurements is actually looking at not only how many new innovations that you're exploring or what you're bringing in, but as they progress through the process, as you're moving to viability and ultimately integrating into the business place. So you not just want to measure singularly on the things that have turned into these great, awesome ideas, but you definitely want to evaluate and measure on how you are following and executing on your process, how well you are publishing and sharing your findings, being able to convert progressively, because it's not just the innovative wins that have come out, it's also some of the power of an innovation center is very good guidance on what not to do in an organization, because now you know that it's not going to give you the return on the investment or what's not to work. So measuring both the wins and the losses avoided are really key indicators.
Great. And the next question is, do innovation centers have to be fixed, or can they be mobile or a temporary space?
You know, I think, and there's been a lot of conversation around this, and I've seen actually folks that have, organizations that have done both, and I've also seen them pick one or the other. I think there is an element where it is important, especially when it comes to physical or device related. So if you wanted to be able to demo and explore, for example, virtual reality or augmented reality, being able to come together in a physical space to have that is definitely an advantage, but not all elements really require that. You can definitely set up mobile ones. We've done that before, where we kind of create kind of an ability to move to a location, set these up quickly to do test and learns or experiments with that. So it's a great question. It doesn't have to be one or the other, but you have to think about, you know, get to where the people are, allow the people to kind of come together at a time to explore and become familiar with them. That's really critical.
And I know we just hit that 20-minute mark, but what I want to do is just go ahead and hang on here for a few more minutes. So those of you who can stay with us, there are 5 or 6 questions that have come in that I still want to make sure that we address with Matt. So if you're able to stay on, we appreciate that. And again, apologize for going over a few minutes, but these are great questions. So Matt, what challenges have you seen with integrating this approach with existing LMS platforms?
With LMS platforms, that's an interesting conversation. I think when it comes to integrating with LMS platforms and or internal technologies, that should always be part of the process, but I recommend not starting with internal environments. That's one of the beauties of a test and learn, is to be able to try something that is in a safe space with low risk information. It's still authentic, but it's not risky information so that people can access it. So when you talk about integrating with systems like LMSs or other secure systems and thinking about trying out new technologies, my recommendation is to move that either to the pilot or a separate exploration on its own. Don't let connectivity with other platforms get in the way of exploring and learning more about the possibilities of it. You want to learn about the viability of a solution early on and know as much as you can about it before I think you move into the deep integration with a lot of systems and connectivity. So that's actually been one of the big barriers I've seen, is that a lot of companies who have really strict security protocols around their systems, like, we'd love to try, you know, this tool or this technique, but there's no way I'll ever get to the security clearance to be able to try that platform and do that. And that's where a nice test and learn in a quick, rapid setup example with safe information that you still want to be aligned with your security in the organization, but try it out in its native environment if you can, in a safe space. And that's where you can, with an innovation center, is kind of create kind of that safe space to do that. That's a really good question, though.
So going back to your example of how machine learning has improved consumer banking, looking down the road, where do you see machine learning enhancing the learner experience in the future?
Well, I think that, you know, as we start to get to more fluid, when we talk about really meeting our performers at the moments of their need when they're performing in the workplace, in a sense, the need to come back into the training class to learn everything. Really, most of what we've been doing historically to meet that first moment of need, the very formal, very structured, I think machine learning will play a bigger role, and really as we meet those on-demand moments of need, when something changes or when something goes wrong, as I'm learning more about something. And the machine learning will come in to say, we're starting to notice a pattern of performance, or you're based on your workflow activities, here's something that would be available, or as people were starting to do this task, this might be available or helpful for you as well. And I think we'll start to see some really good practices where when people are trying to do things or learn things, we'll be able to push things to them, and that machine learning will be able to kind of pick up on those patterns and make connections and make, I think, some of that access to that information. I think the big shift for the designers in our space will need to be thinking about how do you design to teach both the machines as well as creating the experiences and the events for the learners that create that truly seamless, supported experience at the moment of performance, at the moment of need.
So the next question, actually, you did dive into a little bit now that I'm thinking about it in your 45-minute session, but I do want you to touch on it because I think it's an important one. The question is, do you have any advice on how to build the right team to drive innovation within this person's learning organization?
Well, I think one of the first things is to make sure that it's cross-functional. So, for example, if you have instructional designers and project managers and performance improvements consultants and, you know, key stakeholders or learners, I think it's important to first kind of bring a broad set of perspectives to the table as one. But I think some of the other things gets to the base characteristics of the participants. You want them to be naturally curious. You want them to be resilient, to be able to lean in and think methodically about how they ask a question, they gather data, they share information around that. That natural curiosity, asking why, can it be better, what about this? Folks that actually can create, you know, quick mental models of, you know, as they're starting to learn how things work together, or being able to quickly form a mental model of how something could be applied here and then rapidly deconstruct and reconstruct it on the fly. These are more what I would consider, you know, characteristics of the types of thinkers they are at the base element of it. The cross-functional gives you a good perspective into different value chains within the organization. The way they think is another factor. And I think the other thing is a big picture, and this is, I think, for a lot of L&D professionals across the board, is that while we have a really strong focus on thinking systematically, you know, analysis, design, development, we have a systematic process that proceeds through, and we have a series of inputs into that process. Systematic is good, but one of the most important shifts is being able to think systemically. And what I mean is looking at a system and seeing that it's more than a sum of its parts, and then being able to see how that system will evolve over time as you make critical changes to elements of the system as you're doing it. And that's the things that we're really looking at, learning and performance systems, not just integrated, you know, pieces that we put out there, small little learning assets, which are all going to be important. We'll still be creating learning elements, you know, into the future. I don't think that's going to go away, but what we do need to be able to see is how, as a system, learning and performance itself, so looking at it like that. So folks that are inclined to have a systems lens or be able to gain that quickly are also critical with that. But it's definitely a hot topic as we talk about, and I talk with fairly regularly with a lot of, I would say, higher ed institutions that are looking at instructional design, performance improvement. These are things that we're talking about to make sure that the graduates, when they're coming out, they start to gain those perspectives or those ways of thinking. Great question.
That was a good one. And I want to be sensitive to time, so I'm going to go ahead and take one more. But if you do have a question, be sure to still enter it in the Q&A module. I'll pass it along to Matt, and we'll make sure to address those with you directly. But the next question I want to go into is, do you have a good example of e-learning, of any e-learning augmented reality related projects?
Oh, yeah. Probably I would have a couple. And actually, Kayla, if you could actually I would need to talk about it, and let me see if I could distill that one down. But there are some really nice ones that were recently done for some clients, and I would love to share that. So, you know, if you've got the person's information, I can follow up more directly around that with them and kind of distill the facts around that.
That works, and we also have our one of our next 20-minute sessions coming up here in 2 weeks is around augmented reality with Ann Rollins. So that will be a great one to attend as well. So with that, though, I do want to make sure that we are within at least 30 minutes. So I want to say thank you to today's speaker, Matt Donovan, and thank you to everyone who attended for your time and attention. We do hope that you'll join us again for our future sessions on learning trends for 2018 and beyond. Like I mentioned, we have one session every week for about the next 12 weeks. So there's a lot of content and discussions that we're going to cover over the next 3 months. So I encourage you to go to our website, gpstrategies.com, head over to webinars and register for any of those that are relevant to your business initiatives for 2018. With that, I wish everyone a great day and look forward to all the progress we make in the years to come.